Welcome to the Amphigory Effect podcast with your host, Zach Brackett, and your co-host, Justin Marlowe. Let's begin.
That's like making fun of their target demo.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to do that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just another example of like Kickstarter gone horribly wrong.
Yeah. Well, hey everybody, this is the Amphigory Effect podcast. We're trying to make sense of this nonsensical world. I'm Zach Brackett, your host, and Justin here is our co-host. Justin,
Hello.
How's life treating you, buddy?
Doing pretty good.
Yeah.
We got a pretty cool topic today from a listener, which is very exciting. Love to get listeners.
Yes, please do that.
talking
You can any of our Facebook, Instagram videos, you post a comment on there with a topic you'd like to discuss, and we'll talk about it on the show. We pull up on the handy dandy phone here. Jordan Myers says, what is your thoughts / opinions on the different methods YouTubers / streamers make their living? Example, Patreon subscriptions, donations, and revenue sponsorships. Any other lesser known methods? Thank you so much, Jordan, first of all, for submitting a topic.
Love you, Jordan.
Yeah, you're our first one on social media to do so thank you so much. I think he's going a little bit off of what we talked about with the social media episode. We talked about Twitch a little bit and subscribers and YouTube and all that jazz. So I think he's kind of wondering what our opinions are on people who make money off this stuff, because it's kind of a little bit controversial, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting too, and we're coming from a biased perspective, obviously, because we're kind of trying to get into that ourselves. But I think that this new media, YouTube videos, live streaming, it's a huge new medium. It's going to be just increasingly important in the future, and I think it is important that we talk about it.
Right, I think so too. My big thing with this is our bias, so I'm trying to come at it from a completely unbiased standpoint, but I'm just not. You're just listeners are gonna have to accept that we're just.
I'll try and play the devil's advocate as best I can.
Yeah.
Today.
I mean, because we do have a Patreon page. It's coming up in the works, and we're gonna have YouTube and stuff very, very soon. I'm talking a couple of weeks, and so this is gonna be our bread and butter kind of stuff that we want this to become something like the big name stuff. And I have some examples of, and this is all the stuff we're gonna share is public, so this is okay for us to be talking about. I looked up some top Patreon creators. If you don't know what Patreon is, it's essentially a site where you can donate money to people who create stuff that you like per month or per video or whatever you do. So some people have donate like $2 every video, and that doesn't really sound like that much, but if you have 70,000 people donating, $2 every time you open your mouth, then that ends up being a lot of money. So let me just run through a couple of these real quick just to see, unless some of you don't believe that people make their living off of this, absolutely they do. Number one right now on Patreon, on their site, if you just search top Patreon creators, it'll come up. Chapo Trap House, they create Chapo Trap House podcast. They have 12,000 patrons, and they make $53,675 a month.
Incredible.
That is insane.
Literally more than I make in a year.
Yeah. They have, so every patron gives about $4 a month. That's what the math comes out to.
Mm-hmm.
Team Kimu, or Simu.
So as you can see, with 12,000 patrons, average of $4,
yeah,
a lot of those people are giving cents per episode or per month.
Yeah, it's not even that much when you think about it that way.
Yeah.
Team Simu, or Kimu, creating emulation software. They have only 9,000 patrons, which is still a lot, but they make $41,955 a month.
That better be a good emulator.
Yeah,
for that much money.
Amanda Palmer, this is the last one I'll read. She's creating art. She has 9,000 patrons, and she makes $36,000 a thing, per art.
Incredible.
Yeah,
incredible.
And I mean, that's obviously the best case scenario you're going to get. This is the top of the line right now. But I mean, you see people. The first one making a podcast.
So you can clearly see that it's possible to make a living. You don't have to necessarily become rich doing this, but it's totally within the realm of possibility to be able to survive off doing the things that you like, that other people enjoy.
Exactly, like the podcast that makes $50,000 a year. I mean, a month. That's more than enough to live off of. Yeah, for sure.
For most people.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we were talking a little bit before the show started, and as an artist, in my own way. I'm kind of biased again to the arts, and so I know some people think that art is too subjective, right? So you can't really it's whatever you want it to be. So why should we get paid for it? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
In a way, or you shouldn't get paid as much as other people. And I think that I like Patreon the best out of all the different ways that people make money off of internet entertainment. I think it's because it seems the most pure, I guess, if someone who likes the stuff I do is giving me money for the stuff that I do. It doesn't seem to me like I used clickbait and got 2 million people to click on my video, and so YouTube's going to give me money for my ads.
Yeah, I agree. I think the removal of as much corporate garbage as possible is a big part of it, especially ads. I think that when your living comes off of advertising revenue, you're under a pressure to sort of change your content, whatever you might be making, in order to make that advertiser happy, or at least not upset them.
Yeah, and I know when you do spots with sponsors too, and this we don't know that much about sponsors because we don't have any right at this second, but I've done some research on looking how do you get sponsors, and a lot of times they will ask you to do things differently on your shows or something to kind of twist it to promote what they have in store or what they want. A lot of times they don't, but I've heard some people that turned down sponsorships because they asked them to change something that was crucial to what they want to do. And I'm sure even if they don't ask, that pressure is there, right? We have to do everything exactly like we did it when we got the sponsor, or they might say, no, we're done. And then if I'm trying to live off of that money, that's my life, you know?
And that's only the most benign possible risk of sponsors.
Exactly.
I mean, corruption. I've heard tales of YouTubers who were sponsored that actually they had a non-disparagement clause for the sponsor in their contract, in their sponsorship contract, which means for the next 2 years they aren't allowed to say anything bad about the product ththey're sponsoring, which means at that point you can't trust a word that person says on anything
it's not
anymore.
Real. Yeah, especially I heard I listened to Dan Benjamin. He does a for 5x5 Media, I think it is, or Entertainment. He does a lot of podcasts, and I listen to him quite a bit. And one of his things with sponsors is the fact that that he has to actually approve of the product before he'll sponsor it. So he's not going to get on the show and say, try Sprite. You know, it's really good. But unless he really does enjoy whatever product it is. And he says that when he says that he tries something, he absolutely does. And again, it's his word, so we can take it or leave it at that. But I'd like to believe that there are some people out there that they don't take anything without actually approving it first, because they want people who give them money and support them to be honest with them, right? You don't want to be lied to as someone who gives money.
I mean, it's also kind of obviously we're still really small. We don't have any sponsors like Zach said, but even now we have a pressure to not say anything that might upset an advertiser. For example, I'm just going to go ahead and be honest. If I'm listening to a podcast or a YouTube video, either I have ad block on, I mean, that's just the truth, or I skip the ads, or I just ignore them.
Right.
I don't care what Joe Rogan thinks about his underwear. I just don't.
Yeah.
So I think that when you start trying to hawk your wares on people, a lot of the realness and the rawness that comes with these kind of new media outlets is lost.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I like how we started. I see a lot of people with podcasts who are already famous jumping in, and they get sponsors immediately. And that's completely fine, and I'm glad that people are being successful in the podcast. But I think starting from a place like this, where we literally had a gamer mic, you know what I mean? Like a condenser gamer mic that we used to record for the first 2 months, and now we're finally getting, better equipment and more people. We've got 2 or 3 more people that are joining the team soon. And starting from absolute scratch and coming up this way, it feels so much better to me. And I feel like once we get sponsors and people donating money, which I believe that we will in time, that it'll be a much more pure experience, at least for me anyway.
I think that is an interesting conundrum that anyone that creates at some point and has any kind of success has to face is,
right,
what do I do as far as my artistic integrity versus making money? What am I willing to sacrifice?
Right. And I think that's a hard thing too with just what we're doing now, right? We notice, and we'll just straight up tell you guys that if we don't make, especially a show just starting out, since we're not famous, if we don't make stuff really easy, then a lot of times we don't get as many downloads or listens or whatever we want to track it with. And so you look at it that way and you say, well, we get 1,000 views on Facebook for this video, but 25 or 30 downloads for the show. How's that even possible? And so then we try to think, all right, well, what we're engaging on Facebook, our Facebook is good. What do we need to transfer that into the show so people come and listen and do this? And so we've got a lot of ideas and we're excited about it. And I love the challenge, but at the same time, that's the line you're talking about.
As soon as you start talking about what can I do to make these people listen,
is it you anymore?
You're right. You're changing what you are, and is that bad? Maybe not.
Right, and I think I like to think that we do a good job of keeping true to ourselves. It's just trying to find the niche that we're going to fill in this podcast world, and I think that's part of it. But to get back to a little bit what Jordan was saying, let's talk about Twitch a little bit.
Yeah,
we've been talking about Patreon, and a lot of that happens on all these platforms,
right?
Because anyone can have a Patreon page as long as you're creating something.
It's sort of like a glue that holds a lot of these.
Right, and so you see it on
together.
YouTube and podcasting and Twitch and all that. But let's talk about Twitch because YouTube is ads mostly. That's pretty much all it is if you're going to make money on YouTube. Podcast is a lot of Patreon and sponsors, which we've already talked about a little bit. So let's talk about Twitch, which is a little bit different than the others. You can follow people, but to subscribe, you have to pay them. It's like, I don't know, $5 a month or something to subscribe to somebody, and they get half of it or a percentage of it, and Twitch gets the other half. And I think that's interesting. And you have donations, and I've seen people, because I've recently, actually Jordan, he really likes the streaming stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so he's gotten me into looking at some of them, and I'll watch these, they have little windows that say top donations and stuff, and I watch people fight over that stuff and give people $200, $300 in a night. I was watching this guy play For Honor that I like to play. And when I got on there, the top donation was $10. And by the time I got off, like 30 minutes later, it was $250, $300. And that's a one-time donation. It's just people one-upping each other.
Amazing. Yeah, that's the psychology behind like the whales, they call them, in that kind of industry where you, like in free-to-play games or something like that, you'll have 1% of the player base, or the viewer base in this case, providing 99% of the funds. It's so hard for me as a normal human being who like has a limited amount of money to sort of understand the mindset.
They don't have unlimited resources.
But yeah, Twitch is, it's similar to YouTube in that there is ad support, but it is different in that I guess because it's live and you get an immediate reaction to your donation, and which is a huge part of it, is showing the gratitude.
Well, let me just tell you, like, I'm just sitting there, right, and I hit follow because he plays a game I like, and it doesn't cost me anything to hit follow, just like subscribing on YouTube. But my name popped up on the screen, and my name on,
you got that dopamine rush, right?
Yeah. My name on Twitch is Zebra15, right? So he said, "Oh, thanks Zebra for following," and I was like, like fangirling out.
Starstruck,
I was just like, "Oh man, he said my name." Well, that's how it works, though. I mean, people follow, or a good streamer will acknowledge people in the chat rooms that they use, and people who follow and subscribe, because that's the point. That's money. Why you want to do it.
That's why your waitress refills your drink before you have to ask.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the same kind of stuff, and I think it's really interesting. Now, I know that you had, I don't know how you stand right now.
Uh-oh.
You did have a problem with entertainment making as much money as they do at one time.
Yeah. I've had a long argument with Zach and Wesley about I had a problem with entertainers, especially like your A-list celebrities and stuff like that, who I feel like they provide less value to society than, say, a teacher, an engineer.
Right. And I can get on that boat with you.
And as I've thought about it more, I feel like maybe the problem I have isn't with entertainment in general, but more specifically those that are, so blown out of proportion, that are propped up by advertising.
Right.
And
the fake people.
Yeah, this sort of Patreon style, actually becoming a patron of the arts and giving money to people you choose that are providing value to you, I don't have nearly as much of a problem with that.
Right.
I feel like there is a difference there. Maybe that's irrational of me, but I feel like there is a distinct difference between those two.
I think I agree with you. The thing with big celebrities, and let's just go ahead and say professional athletes as well.
Yeah.
They're good at what they do, and I believe that they should be making enough to support themselves full time, right? Because
they entertain a lot of people.
They entertain a lot of people, and they're good at what they do, sports people especially. But I will agree that on just a fundamental how much money they make versus how much a teacher makes in most cities in the U.S., it's crazy to me that they make millions and millions of dollars when teachers make barely enough to survive on their own.
Right.
I know in South Carolina, teachers make about $40,000 a year.
Versus your several million that an NFL player might make.
At least. Or even entertainers that we've been talking about.
Yeah, $300,000.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe a YouTube, like a middle of the road YouTube celebrity, maybe and like 1,000 subscribers.
If it comes, like you said, if it comes from Patreon, I'm a little bit more willing to say, well, those are individual people saying, you make my day better.
Right, it's a person rather than some giant advertising conglomerate just like forcing it down your throat.
Right, who has some kind of plot, right, to say, well, this is helping me, so I'm going to give you money, right? If it comes from people, it's more like you're helping me get through my day, or you're making this that I really enjoy. This is my money, for you, not so you will promote my thing. And I think that's the main difference for me.
It makes me wonder what the future might be like. I talked to Zach a little bit before the show about how this sort of crowdfunding type of payment for artists kind of calls back to the sort of patron system that we had in ancient times, even in Rome and Greece, where someone would actually commission works of art to be made rather than doing it just like as part of some kind of a business. And maybe we're coming full circle back to a system like that. Yeah,
and I think, again, there's no issue with that at all. As people who would like to one day be able to have our own company and studio and make more than one show and do all that, I am excited that these things exist, that there's more than one way that we can be successful with this. And that's why we're trying to do as much as we can do. We've got this show. I know you guys might not have seen it yet, but we do have a show that we do after the show called The Aftercast, and that's going to be up on YouTube very, very soon.
We have some other things in the works.
For over the summer. We're some giveaways and stuff like that. More engaging the audience, which is what we want.
Let's stop shilling though, and let's
that's the point though. Yeah, is because all these things exist. We are trying to spread out and do as much as we can do, right? To find what people actually enjoy and what people like. And I think because of these crazy systems, Patreon and subscriptions and Twitch and all that kind of stuff, it makes it possible for us to do a lot of different things. If it was just YouTube, right, where you make a lot of money, we'd probably just be doing YouTube videos or this and this. We don't just pander for money, but at the same time, we want this to go somewhere.
Right.
And so you're going to end up doing one thing. But because we have all these great places where we can interact with our audience through social media and Patreon and all that, it makes us able as creators to do whatever we want. And that in turn puts a message to our audience that this is us, this is pure, this is what we want to be. So when you think about people let's just say Rhett and Link, because I'm most familiar with them on YouTube. There's the people I watch, and they're great. I love them, but they do some stupid stuff, right? They do stuff like covering each other in nachos, cheese, and stuff, like just stuff that you would say, well, no one's gonna watch that. But because they're doing what they love to do, and they're pure about it, and they're funny people, they get millions and millions of subscribers and views, and they make enough to have their own studio, and they have employees, and they moved out to LA, and they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But when you look at the content, you're like, how could this actually be entertaining? Like from an intellectual level a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I absolutely.
Yeah, I can see you kind of biting your lip over there. But at the same time, it's because of who they are, right? They're completely real, and they're having a blast, and so that's infectious. And I think that all these different mediums that we can interact with people give us those opportunities. And so overall, I think Jordan, that I love it, man. I think it'll end up being what makes media so great.
I agree with your sentiment for the most part, but I do think we should talk about some of the concerns and especially the future of these sort of new medias and what they might entail. Like we were talking about the NFL before, and I wonder if something like a crowdfunded football league might be something in the works. Where's the limit to all this? We've had big budget video games that have been made totally by crowdfunding. We had I've heard of a bunch of failed civic projects. Like, I don't know if you've heard of solar roadways were crowdfunded. They were supposed to be a sort of hexagonal solar panel that would replace asphalt. Really? Yeah, and they'd be able to heat up and melt snow on them and stuff. Engineering disaster, but it's something that happened. Right. So it makes you wonder where's the limit? What can't be done with this?
Well, you see all kinds of things getting crowdfunded now, like those fidget toys. I heard of those recently. They were not a thing at all until Kickstarter. They raised more than enough money to get them out, and now you have duplicates all over Amazon. You can buy them really cheap, and it's just stuff like that. People are saying what they want, right? And instead of going to big stores and saying, what do you have that's like this, they go on Kickstarter or places like that and say, this is what I want. Thank you.
That is cool. I like that you're sort of getting rid of the middleman of the focus group and just putting your money towards what you actually want. But at the same time, Kickstarter especially, I think, is one where you have a lot of evidence of the potential pitfalls. Right.
Well, you have people that say this is what we're going to do and give examples, and it's all good and dandy until they walk away and say, no, we're done. Thanks for your money.
The cut and run has happened, absolutely.
And I don't, not to say everyone who ever gets on Kickstarter is like that, obviously not, but there have been quite a few.
And there's not a whole lot of protection as far as I understand it. You're not really guaranteed those to
people.
Anything.
Yeah, you're trusting those people for sure. And then you have the other things that they change the product at the last minute. And so you were putting your money toward something you thought was going to be great or this way, and then you get your pre-order or whatever, and it's absolutely not what you put your money toward.
Yeah, I think that when we were talking a couple episodes back about being careful what you hear on the internet and always double checking your facts, there are a lot of, especially like sort of science and engineering related Kickstarters out there that are based on just totally whack principles that have no chance of working.
Actually working.
And yeah, I recently heard about a water bottle that was supposed to condense water vapor from the air and fill your water bottle.
What?
But it turns out that's exactly what a dehumidifier does.
Yeah.
That you can go to a store and buy. And you know how large those are. So try fitting that onto a water bottle.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show how terrible this idea was. I think it's gotten hundreds of thousands of dollars from people just because they're totally ignorant about science.
You just make a backpack. It's just be a humidifier on your back.
They wanted it to fit in the little bottle storage place on your bike. Yeah, good luck. Good luck.
Wow, that's crazy.
It'd take you weeks to fill that water bottle with the thing they had on it.
I heard about another water-related thing, too. I don't know if this has gone anywhere, if it's even real. But there's this cup, and it smells like the flavor you want to taste, right? And they sold it.
How does this work?
They said that because you drink just regular water, right? And the cup itself has this odor of like peaches or something,
so
right?
It tastes
so it
like peaches?
Tricks your brain into thinking you're drinking peach juice or orange juice
until
or whatever.
You throw up.
And then you drink it, and because water doesn't really have a taste, it's easy for your brain to say, oh, this is this juice, and so it actually tastes like it.
So did this actually work?
The videos I've seen say that it did, but again, those are all marketing, so I don't know if this is actually a thing or not. But stuff like that is interesting, but at the same time,
buyer beware.
I don't want exactly. That's the point. Is just like, yeah, this looks cool in the video that you might have paid someone to say, oh yeah, this works. And there's no way to know unless I actually physically have it. But I'm not paying you $30 to send me one. You know what I mean?
Right. Like, I mean, this is the modern day snake oil salesman, basically.
Right.
What we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And these crowdfunding sites, while they have all this power to support people doing things legitimately, it's like a breeding ground for con men. I mean, if you've heard of Steam, Greenlight was sort of like Steam is like a marketplace for digital games that you can go and download games, but
growing quickly too.
Yeah, they had a section that basically anyone could publish their games to and sell them for money, which meant that you had tons of people ripping off content from like development kits and just reselling them. Just total garbage games. Just
was that actually working though?
It was so bad that they've shut it down now.
Because that's essentially all it became.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
There were entire companies making their living off stealing people's content and making
and just
crappy
making
games.
Yeah, and they're selling them to.
So that's kind of the fear.
Right, and that makes sense. I don't know. It seems like the modern way to do this with all these different mediums, it makes it better in some ways, and in some ways it makes it more complicated and harder.
I think it makes it better as long as people are careful. You need to be thoughtful with what you put your money towards, as you should be already.
Right.
If you are sick of seeing the same superhero movie every year and you want new things, you want creativity in that industry, stop paying for the things that aren't creative and start supporting the things that are.
Yeah. And I think these give you an excellent way to do that, for sure. That these
it definitely feels like the consumer has more power now than ever before.
And like what we're trying to do with our show is be more interactive with listeners to make sure that we're getting content that they enjoy and that we enjoy giving as well. And I think with these mediums you can do that so much more than just like big movies do. If you just want to make that comparison where you see the trailer and that's it, and you can go and pay $20 for more than $20 for 2 tickets to go see it with somebody. And then you give your money to something like that, which isn't a bad thing. I like a good superhero movie every now and again, but I don't get any direct input. But I think that's what's great about podcasts and YouTubers and Twitch is being so interactive with the audience.
You'll never have Thor say your name, but you can have me say your name. All you have to do is send us an email. It's that easy.
And Justin will, for sure.
Oh yeah, I'll give it to you nice. If you want it that way. However you want it, that's how I'll do it. You just let me know.
Yeah, so I don't know how to respond to that at all. But the
new
point
media,
stands,
it's all about viewer interaction.
Yeah.
The buzzword you hear is engagement. I think Zach even said it earlier because we're getting on the buzzword train.
Yeah, engagement.
You have to.
Engagement.
So what we want is for people to respond. We want it to be more of a dialogue than us just shoving content down your throat.
Right. And I love topics that are suggested by us because by listeners, because it makes us feel like, okay, we're doing something that people like. They want to hear more about this topic or more about that topic. So people are actually, saying, I like how you talk about these topics, but can you talk about this one and this one? And I love that. I say, please keep doing it, because that's what makes it fulfilling to me, knowing that the content that we put out means something to somebody else besides us, because it means a whole lot to us.
It's our lives, basically.
Yeah, this is what we live for every week, getting in front of the camera and in front of our mics.
It's mostly narcissism, but
mostly, yeah, and that's why Justin wants you to email him with your name, just your name. That's all. This episode of the Infigure Effect podcast was produced by myself, Justin Marlowe, and Wesley Thomas. The music here at the beginning and the end is done by Josh Goforth. This show was edited by Joe Weisner. The logo was done by Haley Nealing. Please follow us on all social media. Again, I said it again, didn't I?
Social media.
I don't know why I can't say that, man. I can't say
too much saliva, man.
Social.
You gotta suck it up.
Social. There you go. Again, we're doing our topics a little bit different now. If you find our social media, comment on those videos and send us topics that you'd like to hear. Jordan did it, and he's, I'm sure, completely satisfied with his experience.
He's famous now.
Yeah.
At least 20 people are going to hear his name.
We said his name like 4 or 5 times on the show, and that could be you. That could be you, sweet
You could
listener.
live that dream. You could be famous, just like Jordan.
Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, really appreciate you guys being here. Thanks a lot for joining us, and look forward to everything we have coming this summer.
Teaser.
Later.